Hi, welcome to this episode of Transfer Tea. Today I'm here with Nicole, and I'm going to let her just give a quick intro about herself and we'll just get started with the interview.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Nicole Hong. I transferred actually from the same community college as Ariana. It's College of San Mateo. And I transferred last year and I'm now at UC Berkeley studying media studies and data science.
Well, that is awesome, and we'll get into media studies and we'll get into Berkeley, but we're going to start first. I'm curious why. I think I actually know when we talked about it, but I think everyone else is curious to know why you picked CSM and why you chose community college.
Yeah, so I chose community college. I never expected to attend community college because just my whole life, attending a four-year university or UC was always a given. It was always expected. And community college definitely had a stigma. Like when my sister found out that I was deciding to go to CSM, she was actually like, "Oh, did you know that like people in my class, they're like CSM is like College of Small Minds instead of College of San Mateo?" And I was like, and obviously like that stigma really affected me. Really why I decided to go to community college was because in my junior year of high school, I was diagnosed with a chronic autoimmune illness called lupus. And so that left me constantly out of school. I would make it to school three times per week on a good week, and I was in the hospital. And so because of this experience and because of being constantly out of school, I developed a lot of social anxiety because all of my friends my whole life were really school academic focused. And I guess so that's something that we all had in common, like that's what we all had in common. And so because all my friends were taking AP classes and the SAT, ACT, and we're talking about those things, now that I was barely going to school and I was already set on going to community college, there wasn't really anything much to talk about. And so yeah, like throughout like my junior senior year, I really developed a lot of social anxiety and like would eat lunch by myself. And so I made the final decision to attend community college because I was still experiencing these complications with my health. And so I needed my family's help to care for me. And also, it was approaching COVID. And as someone who was in the high risk category for COVID, as someone with an autoimmune illness, I just thought that it would probably be best.
Wow, thank you for sharing that with us. And I think that idea of like no longer having that main thing to connect with other people, with your like classmates and your friends is really hard to hear, but I don't know about you, but like I feel like looking back, it's interesting to think about the dynamics in high school and how we were back in high school. So like focus on this one thing and nothing else really mattered. I am also curious when you had all these experiences and then you were like, okay, like now I'm in college, what do I do? What did you want to do, or what did you gravitate towards like majoring in, and were you thinking about career? Like what was on your mind?
I mean, of course, I think from the get-go, I knew that I wanted to get out of community college. I think it's probably similar with a lot of people who attend community college and are looking to transfer out as like, okay, this is 2 years of my life. Like, I want to get out as quickly as possible. So, like, I definitely had UCLA and UC Berkeley in mind as schools to which I wanted to transfer. But I think that the main, like, I started out as a psychology major actually, because like I had this idea of wanting to help people struggling with similar mental health issues that I encountered throughout high school. But I didn't really like psychology because it was a little too sciencey for me. Like I remember one class we were going over what the different parts of the brain were called, and I was just like, oh, I'm not really interested in this. I want to go into like maybe marketing or something, and I don't really care too much about what they're called. So I switched to majoring in communications because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, like maybe something business related, maybe something law related. And so I just chose the general major. Like people have asked me before why I didn't choose like something like business or econ, but I was actually really behind. Like, I think the highest math level I went to in high school was I didn't even get to pre-calc. I did something called finite math. It was like an introduction to statistics class, just because I was constantly out of school. And so it would take me another year or even two to pursue that additional math that I needed for econ or business. So I decided on communications. But actually, it was later on that I discovered that I really enjoyed industries related to communications. And that's actually actually probably the right path. I think like a big takeaway that I've had from that process is just like do things that you're passionate about. And actually I learned that from transfer T. Do things that don't really feel like work. Take classes that you're where you're actually interested in the material and you want to research more about the material outside of class. Take classes where it isn't a chore to go to class. You actually is a privilege to go to class. When I first went into community college, I came in with a lot of social anxiety and I really wanted to get over that. Like not even related to my major, just personally. So like, I told myself, okay, like just join 2 organizations and if you don't like them, you can always drop in the future. So I started that, like I went through a lot of clubs in community college. And I think it was really in my second semester where I discovered something called the programming board within our community college's student government. And that was a lot of like community and college event planning and marketing. And I realized that I really liked that as well as leadership. And so that passion for leadership and that love for showing up to these meetings and discussing ways to improve the student body's experience was what led me to run for election as a senator and eventually be promoted as student body vice president.
I think that's so awesome how you let yourself discover what you needed and kind of pushed yourself too to do things that maybe didn't feel the most comfortable, but like they clearly worked out so well for you. Were there ways that you convinced yourself to do things? Like I know if you're going in with like having maybe some like anxieties around even just the idea of like running for student government can be like kind of intimidating. Like how did you convince yourself like, no, I should do this. I can do this. Like I'm capable of doing this.
This isn't everyone's experience, but what really helped for me was that I didn't know too many people attending community college. So I didn't have that fear of like worrying about what other people thought of me. A lot of my friends were attending four-year universities. Also, when I attended community college, it was during COVID. So like it definitely helped that like you could hide behind a screen at times. Like when I was first getting into things. Overall, I think what really helped was having the mindset and realizing that actually community college students are some of the most accepting people you'll ever meet because attending community college is already a little non-traditional in itself. Like it's not that direct path from high school to a four-year university. And when you attend community college, you meet people from all different backgrounds in your classes. Like you meet people who are international students or who maybe or like undocumented students who were still learning English throughout high school and even college, or you meet people who are like veterans or returning students, and you realize that a lot of these people are on different journeys themselves. And so if anything, they're like everyone around you is supportive of whatever unique path you're taking. And as cliche as it sounds, like everyone's path truly is different.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. It's kind of like an overlooked part of the experience, but you really meet so many different people. And yeah, I definitely agree. Like there is like some ease around COVID, if there were any benefit to it. I'd love to talk about what your transfer process was like. I know you said you went in with like UCLA and UC Berkeley as your goals. So I'd love if you also wanted to touch on how USC happened for you and what that experience was like.
I knew that I wanted to apply to UC Berkeley and UCLA. So I geared a lot of my community college experience to those schools. I also took advantage of the tag program. I tagged to UCSB. With these UC schools, of course, like they look at your application holistically, but in my experience talking with admission officers and representatives, these schools really value that you have your requirements done, that you meet a certain GPA. Some of these schools are really strict with those, especially tag schools. You have to complete those specific requirements, have that specific GPA in order to guarantee transfer into those schools. And so I would recommend, even if you don't know, let's say your major when you're starting out in community college, and that's completely okay, it's really helpful to just pick a major and gear your classes and requirements to that major from the beginning, because at least you're working your way towards something. Another takeaway that I always provide to students looking to transfer is with the application, of course, like I'm going to give standard advice, like, start on it early. But also, if you guys haven't started on it early, it's okay. I started on my UC applications. Like I told myself like it was nearing November and it's due at the end of November. And I told myself, like, I have to start on this on Halloween. I can't start on this the month that it's due. So I started it on October 31st. And I think I took a lot of time to reflect on myself, like get to know myself. What really helped me was creating something, a quote unquote brag sheet, where like I listed out everything about myself that made me proud, all my accomplishments, all of my experiences, everything that I thought I could use to give value to the school. I listed them out, and having those and reading the essay prompts ahead of time and knowing how to sort these experiences and accomplishments and activities into buckets, like the different essay buckets, is really helpful. Even if you're not starting on writing the essays yet, just taking a look at those questions really helps. And then also with my transfer process, I later applied to USC. I really felt like going back to passion, I really spent a lot of time researching UC Berkeley and UCLA and imagining myself in there watching day in the life videos. And so I really fell in love with those schools. I didn't really research USC as much. So I think that really showed in my application and my application process to that school. I started my USC application at 8 p.m. the night that it was due because my parents were like, you have all this experience, you have all these accomplishments. I can't believe you're not applying to USC. And then so last minute, I was like, okay, I'll apply. And I mean, this is also just advice, like just try for a lot of these things because you never know. Like I left some of the questions. Honestly, I'm going to be honest. I left some of the questions blank. I just copied and pasted my UC essays into the boxes, but I still got into USC. I think it's because I had requirements done and I had a really competitive GPA. But I guess with the transfer process, just approach it open-mindedly, still keeping those requirements in mind. But yeah, approach it open-mindedly and apply to schools that you fall in love with, and like try to do as much research as you can to fall in love with what's right for you.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. And thank you for like the transparency there. There's like schools are so different, and it's always baffles me when people have already started their essays, like for some privates that are like due later in March and they're messaging me in August. And I'm like, are you not busy? Like you don't want to do some other stuff in between. But it really is to your point, like there are things that are looked at, there are different ways that different schools value certain things, and at the end of the day, like the idea of picking schools that align with your passions, I mean, ultimately you went to Berkeley, right? And so it's like finding what you actually want to do and where you want to be. I love that you can watch also day in the life videos now, or you can like interact with people on TikTok and you can like see a little bit more rather than just like what they market to you on their websites. I think there's a lot people can take from that. So I definitely hope that people will like see the messages within your kind of transfer process. This is a question coming from having known like quite a few people at Berkeley, all having very different experiences. So how has it been for you? And like, how was your first year? How do you feel about, I know you guys just started your second year, but what has it been like at your receiving school? And especially if there's parts specific to being a transfer that you want to talk about.
So I'm just going to be completely transparent. So I've been at Berkeley for a year so far, and I'm intending to stay at Berkeley for 2 more years. That's pretty common with transfers. I mean, you don't have to, but staying at the receiving school for like an extra year, staying 3 years, just because 2 years is a very short time. But I've been at Berkeley for a year so far, and it hasn't all been like sunshine and roses. My first 2 semesters, it was actually really difficult to find community. I came into Berkeley knowing that I wanted to join student government because I really enjoyed that in community college. And then I went on Sproul and I saw all these consulting clubs were tabling. The consulting culture at Berkeley is really intense. You send in your resume and your written application, and then they weed you out. Then they have like first round group interviews where you go over a consulting case with other students, other applicants. Then they weed you out. Then you go for like a social mixer where they determine your social fit and your vibe. Then they weed you out. And then finally, you get to the final round interview, which is usually an individual interview where they ask you behavioral and other consulting case questions, and then they weed you out, and then they have their new member class. So it's really stressful, and I didn't foresee that when I went to Berkeley, because all the clubs in community college, at least for me, were all inclusive, like anyone could join. So I looked into 1 or 2 consulting clubs at Berkeley. but I didn't complete my applications on time, so I wasn't accepted. But I was accepted into student government. So I worked in the office of the president on their social media team, and I liked that. And so my second semester, I was promoted to a chief of staff position within the chief communications and marketing office, also within Berkeley student government. And I also enjoyed that. But still, like, I found a little bit of a disconnect because student government at Berkeley at a public school is so broad, and you can't really see like the tangible impact that you're having as easily as you can in community college. And a lot of the things that you're doing, like, you have an idea, then it gets passed to someone else. Like, it gets, sometimes your ideas get lost in translation. And so coming from student government, I saw a lot of people in Greek life. And so my second semester, I tried to join Greek life. I ended up not really vibing with that either. And then this fall, I was like, okay, like, these consulting clubs are so exclusive. They're not taking me. Greek life isn't taking me. Okay, I want to try something fun, like a new skill that I've never tried before. So I decided to try out a cappella. So I auditioned for a cappella groups. And I mean, I can sing, I can sing pretty well, but I don't have prior singing experience. I made it to the second round for some of these a cappella groups, but didn't get into those. And then so I was like, oh no, shoot. Like, I really want to find community this semester. So I actually applied to the consulting clubs again. But since I had experience applying to them my first semester, like, I had my resume ready. I was ready to gear my resume towards those specific clubs. I was prepared to, like, at Berkeley, like, for these consulting clubs, they really value quote unquote demonstrated interest. In addition to submitting your application and going for those interviews, if they call you back, they really value like going to their info sessions. Like, they take attendance for going to their info sessions, coffee chatting their members. So I knew how to do the whole Berkeley Consulting Club thing. I was familiar with it. So I was going for those info sessions, going for those coffee chats. I mean, they always tell you like it's not mandatory, like, but it is, like, at Berkeley at least. So I went for those this semester, and just this week I got word that I was accepted into two of these consulting clubs. So one is called Core Consulting Group. Actually, if anyone's coming to Berkeley, it's Berkeley's first transfer and URM, underrepresented minorities consulting group, trying to get those kinds of students into consulting. The other one is a marketing consulting group, which I'm interested in.
Well, congratulations. Berkeley is stressing me out and I'm not even there. That is insane. But yes, congratulations. And I think definitely very interesting to hear that experience. I've also heard similar things related to like investment banking. Is that, yeah. I think
Yeah.
something about what you said is like stands out to me, which is like the second time around having like you have the knowledge that you didn't have before, which is so valuable. And is I think like one of the biggest things we lack as transfers is like on the receiving end, there's still not enough infrastructure there to support you. Definitely, I feel like there's a lot more at some of these schools that are putting in the work, but like might have been nice to have someone be like, hey, you should probably go to those. Like those are actually like going to be really helpful. Wow, I'm still like taken aback. That was like that was very stressful for me to listen to because I'm like, what do you mean? I think another thing that stood out to me is like you kind of fall into like, wow, now I have all these opportunities, but you're also like still trying to figure out where you want to even be. Like, do you actually want to be in Greek life? Do you want to be in this group? Like you still trying to figure it out. Like for me personally, I was like, wow, there's so many resources. What do I do? And I asked someone and he was like, well, you're the one who's always like, do what you're passionate about. So just do what sounds interesting to you. And I said, you're right. But it kind of slips your mind when you're like looking at like lists and lists of things you can do. I feel like at CC it was like a shorter list of things you could do. But thank you for sharing that. I want to also ask you, like, now that you've gone through everything and you have like also a year under your belt and you've started on your second, reflecting on all of this, maybe what would you say to students who are kind of in a similar boat? Like they're considering some of these amazing schools, but they maybe don't really know what they need to know. What advice would you give to students who are where you were maybe 2 or 3 years ago?
Having some sort of goal. Like, it's completely fine to not know what you want to do, what you want to major in, where you even want to transfer to from the beginning, but just like create some kind of goal so that there's something to work towards. I think that that's important. So like maybe picking a major, like picking, like, I don't know, going on one of those career major kind of quizzes or finders online, and picking something. By trying that something, you may find out that's right for you. Or even if it doesn't work out for you, maybe you're interested in this one particular segment of this major or industry. And then you're like, oh, okay, like I'm interested in this. Okay. And that leads you to finding a different major, like finding that you want to go towards. So just having a goal, starting out with a goal can open doors to other goals that may be more fitting. But like having that goal is really helpful to start gearing your application to these schools, like at least these UCs, which are very requirement and GPA focused. And I also really recommend really try to have all of your requirements done, at least for UC schools. And even if there's no articulated course, because this is something that really shocked me, at least with UCLA. Like I didn't actually consider Berkeley as much. I really wanted to get into UCLA, and I did, but it was later that I chose Berkeley. At least UCLA is really strict on GPA and really strict on completing articulated courses. It wasn't until later that I talked to a UCLA counselor advisor. It wasn't until I had already applied. Like they told me that, yeah, like it might say on assist that your course is not articulated at your community college, but the most competitive applicant would look for other community colleges to complete those courses. So that's what I was never told in community college by my counselors. Like my counselors were all great, but it was just something like, of course, they have a lot of different schools to which students are applying. They're working with a lot of different students. So there are things that do get lost in translation sometimes. And I actually have heard a lot of community college hopeful transfers being like why didn't I know about this? But I think advisors for the school that you want to transfer to will know their requirements best, will know what they're looking for the best. So I think like really ensuring that you're talking to advisors at those schools, I think that's really important. And then my last piece of advice, overall advice, have an open mind and give yourself leeway, like give yourself time to figure it out. Like understand that everyone's journey is truly different. Like, and that's the fun part, right? Like jumping from different things that maybe don't work for you, but eventually being able to use those different things to find what you're really passionate about. And then same thing when you actually transfer to the university. Don't compare yourself to juniors who started out in their freshman year. Like really, like you're a first year at that university, at your receiving university. So like if you're not getting into these consulting clubs, or if you're not getting into these clubs, or like you're not sure what communities you want to join, or you're having trouble joining communities, like this is your first year. Like you can always try in a future semester. I think that like everything's going to work out as long as you're doing things that you're passionate about.
Definitely agree with what you've said, especially for the UCs, like having those requirements and then just giving yourself kind of like the room to figure things out and not feel like everything needs to be perfect. Well, it's so great to speak to you, having like spoken to you while you were in CC and like getting to see all the cool things that you have done and accomplished, and like to very many, many more. I'm so excited to see like what you end up doing after Berkeley too. But thank you for your time and sharing your experiences so honestly and openly. And yeah, it's just so exciting. Thank you for being on the pod. It's cool.
Thank you so much, Ariana. I went through my community college journey listening to the podcast, and so it's so surreal that I'm actually on it. But good luck to everyone applying, and you can always reach me. Like if you just search Nicole Hong, UC Berkeley, like media studies and data science on LinkedIn, you can find.
Just Google her. She's there. Awesome. Well, thank you. We'll try to also put it wherever there are links on whatever you're watching or listening to, so you can reach out to Nicole if you need. But yeah, thank you again. It's so nice to have you here. I'm so grateful.